Scuttlebutt is a creature that lives up on this very mountain and kills anybody who dares climb to the top. Why? Because it loves the taste of blood and likes to add pieces to its deformed body.
Welcome back to Thinking Critical. This is Wes, and I'm here with my good friend Doc. Been here from since day one. How you doing, Doc?
I'm wonderful, brother. Thanks for having me back.
Barely speak.
Yep. We're all it's time o'clock and early and late for respectively.
This comic book fandom that we've been in here, there's so many boogeymen that have been created by the comic book industry, and I kind of wanted to talk about a couple of them in particular. And shoot, I might even be a comic book boogeyman here kind of soon, Doc, where you're saying, oh, Wes said something, so therefore, and if you agree with him on anything, that means you're evil. And it's kind of strange. Obviously, the two big ones that people will talk about are Richard C. Meyer, used to be known as Diversity in Comics. Now he's Comics Matter with your boy Zach, and Ethan Van Sciver, the man behind Comic Artist Pro Secrets. And they've elevated these guys up. Like, you would think they were pure evil with the way that the comic pros and even like the people within like journalists, the guys that are working for comic books or whatever, within there, the way they talk about these two. But if you really look back what's happened there have been some things that I don't agree with, and I think they may have gone over the line a couple of times here and there. But for the most part, the criticism is what it is. It's merely criticism. But these guys have just been elevated to this boogeyman status. So really, the comic book industry and mostly the creators themselves don't ever have to actually accept any type of criticism. And they can always say, you know what? It wasn't me. Richard Meyer, he did something mean 5 years ago.
Yeah. I mean, look, we're dealing with an industry full of people that don't understand what villains are. So they make normal people into villains with regularity. And honestly, it's amusing at this point because none of these people are super villains. Jesus Christ, they're not Dr. Friggin' Doom. Hell, they're not even Paste Pot Pete. They're just normal people on the internet with opinions you don't like. Now, it is greatly amusing to me to watch all of this, like watch an entire industry lose its collective minds over some sometimes good, sometimes shitty internet takes by fanboys on, and a bunch of nerds on the internet. Hugely amusing to me.
But they can't let it go at this point, Doc. Even, Richard has certainly, he's taken a little bit of spice out of his content. He's not nearly as personal with some of the things he says. Mostly keeps it to criticism about the comic books and everything coming out, which I think is smart on his part. It's clear that he wanted to make some amends, admit, not apologize because he never apologized, but certainly admit that he probably could have done things differently, changed a little bit about as far as his presentation and whatever. But they can never let it go, because if they sit there and like, okay, that's, if they just recognize that Richard is just a guy that made a mistake here and there, then they would actually have to listen to his criticism or even acknowledge that maybe he has a point.
Yeah.
And for them to do that, like, that means they wouldn't be perfect.
Well, yes. I mean, we're dealing with a lot of people that don't really believe in redemption. They claim to believe in redemption, but they really don't. And if you're able to be redeemed, that means you're able to find that you're not entirely, irredeemable.
Well, that's saying that Richard needed to redeem himself. He's been contrite. He's changed the way he's done things. He hasn't done any of the stuff that they were really mad about in quite some time. The problem is there's no forgiveness.
Well, yeah, there isn't. There's no forgiveness. There's no second chances. There's no just letting bygones be bygones. There's no, all of history, both the past, the present, and the future, are all occurring simultaneously. And if you did something 5 years ago, or if you did something 2 years ago, it's the same as doing it now or tomorrow. It's everything is a singularity of time, and you can't, people don't change, because if people change, then you might have to, they might not change completely. They might not be doing the things that you're mad about anymore, but now they're still doing the things that you didn't want, you got mad about, so you didn't have to hear before. I mean,
well, he still serves a purpose as this boogeyman, the diversity comics guy that's coming out there to eat your children and destroy comic books.
Absolutely. And a boogeyman is easy. It's easy to ignore.
It's not even, they don't ignore him. He won't even be a part of anything, and they continuously bring him up.
Well, no. I mean, a boogeyman's easy to ignore any of their message. You're able to write off the boogeyman as completely bad. Nothing about them has any value. Not only that,
they write off anyone that raises up a criticism similar to his. You don't even have to be associated with them. Like, I heard that from Diversity in Comics. That means you're a Nazi too. It's like,
yes. If you think, if the bad guy, if the super duper terror bad guy thinks a thing, and then somebody else thinks that same thing, that makes them bad terror bad too. And it could be somebody you're like, I don't even know who that dude is. I've literally walked onto the internet yesterday. I just have a thought, and I'm expressing, well, it's the same as this other bad terror bad guy, so therefore you are bad terror bad, and nothing you ever say should ever be listened to, and you should be shunned from society, and I don't know, pilloried or something. Whatever.
It's crazy. All the stuff they say about Richard is, a lot of it's kind of easily disproved. They're like, he's a racist, and you're like, he's got like, I think 3 children, and they're all different races. It's like, you're saying that he doesn't love his children?
Yeah,
because they're not white. Like, get out of here.
Yeah, he's been. I mean, the dude's like, he walks past someone of a different race, and they get pregnant by him. That's at this point. And so he's not. You don't. If he's a racist, he's racisting really, really badly. It's like, they're not doing it.
He must be an awful father as well, because he had a bad opinion that we didn't like about comic books, or he was mean to a couple people a few years ago. He must be a terrible father who hates his children. Like, get out of here.
They've kind of gotten into this Kafka trap of, well, this one thing is bad, and it's done by this person, therefore everything this person does is bad, therefore everyone that associates with this person is bad, therefore everyone thinks that similar thoughts to this person is bad, and therefore we're fine because we disagree with him on everything and he's terrible. That's the way. That's like this logic track that anyone with
don't look at me, look at him.
Yes.
It's not about me and my writing here. It's about Diversity of Comics and his opinions. And it's the same thing with Ethan Van Sciver. That case is even stranger. Yeah. Obviously, Ethan was at DC Comics when he was essentially like, there were a couple of people in the media that started calling him a Nazi. And then it came out that he had voted for Donald Trump, which apparently is some type of sin. And they just allowed all these people to dogpile on him and talk crap. These are supposed to be his friends, right? The comic book creators within the industry, the people that he helped make a lot of money with his art. Grant Morrison, Jeff Johns would be the 2 biggest names that you could think of. But he certainly worked with the who's who out there as well. Mark Waid, Gail Simone, and others. And they were either silent or they jumped on the bandwagon. They force him out of DC Comics. They get their way. And now that they're mad that he said, well, screw this. I'm not going to sit there and grovel and beg for your forgiveness. I'm going to go make my own channel. And, you won't stop talking about me. Well, I'll start talking about you and your shitty comic books. And now he's evil. It's like, you literally created this dude.
Yeah, exactly.
Ethan Van Sciver is a known commodity as a comic book artist. But the reason he ended up having this enormous YouTube channel is because you essentially dared him to do it.
Yeah, I mean, look, you forced the guy. Yeah, you forced the guy out of his job. What it comes down to is they're mad that he didn't just get like super sad and kill himself. That's
we took your livelihood away. You weren't supposed to do anything to make money and take care of your family.
Yeah, you were supposed to go maybe
roll over.
Yeah, you were supposed to either die or go. You were to be entirely out of the public life, in a hermit somewhere. Maybe you were drawing storyboards for Cheerios commercials. That's what will allow you to do something that where your name and your art is never really seen again. You've never get to communicate with the world, and you definitely don't get to criticize or compete against us, because no, you're not allowed to do that. That's what they're mad about. And honestly,
and don't get me wrong, I think Ethan went too far, specifically with the war campaign stuff. I don't even want to get into the details of that, but I was not a big fan of that whatsoever, and that was definitely some of the reasons I was like, this Comic Gate stuff is just a little bit too fractured. There's way too many factions within it. I think I'll just be my own thing, but Ethan has a lot of value, a pretty good criticism. He goes a little far from my take every once in a while, but that's his point of view on what's going on with the comic books. But these people are now absolutely petrified of him because they end up giving him this enormous voice. And it turns out, and they should have known this, he's really entertaining and he knows how to, spin a yarn and get his point across.
Yeah. Like, look, I'll be perfectly honest. I don't really find Ethan all that entertaining. That's fine. I just don't watch him. But other people do, and I'm happy that they do. And you know what? He's amassed a huge following. Now, part of it's his name, part of it's his art, part of it is his history in the comics industry, and a lot of it, though, is his ability to entertain. And that's awesome. Now, the problem is that, well, shit, he's still there. He still exists. He didn't just go away. Now,
in a lot of ways, he's more influential than any comic writer or artist at the big two right now.
He's absolutely he's more influential in his current role than he ever was as a comic book
He's like
industry.
Obi-Wan Kenobi. Strike me down, I'll become more powerful than you could ever imagine.
Exactly. Richard, for never writing for the big two, never doing art.
Listen, he's a New York Times best-selling author. I just want to point that out.
Yeah. But for never being really in the comic book industry, you've made him into far more of a thing than he had really any right to ever be just by giving him attention. And Ethan, you made him far more influential than he ever was when he was drawing friggin' Flash or Green Lantern.
Yeah, making money for you.
Yeah.
He's more influential now that he's talking about how bad your product is. And the crazy thing is, and I hear this a lot, Doc, they're always like, Comicsgate. They won't even put it in a tweet anymore. Yeah. They put the
asterisks,
hashtags or asterisks in there because they're scared to say the word. And people see it, and they're like, what the hell is Comicsgate? And then you look it up, and there's a wiki on it or whatever, and then they go, well, Ethan Van Sciver, Richard C. Meyer. They go to their YouTube channels and they go, these guys don't seem that unreasonable. And they're literally, they are the best recruiting tool that Ethan or Richard or anybody within Comicsgate really have on getting them new viewers, is all these morons talking about how insane they are. Because hey, let's go check out the car wreck, and then you go check it out, and you're like, oh, I can get behind that. The writing does suck right now. I can get behind that. It does feel like there's too much of this or too much of that. Or I'm definitely seeing this trend that Richard's talking about, or I'm seeing this thing that Ethan's talking about. And they're like, oh, yeah, these guys aren't crazy.
Yeah, they're a bunch of...
Let me subscribe.
Yeah, they're a bunch of just harmless Gen X nerds that yell about bad comics on the internet and on YouTube, and are relatively funny sometimes, make valid points, and aren't like
That's the
raging
worst
lunatics.
part. I think that's the thing that makes them so upset and makes these guys so evil is they make valid points. Like, how dare you put a spotlight on our work and point out what's actually wrong with it?
Well, I mean,
how can I put it? You are a hate monger.
Well, we saw it
with.
Well, we just saw that, but that seems to be a tactic of a lot of these people. We just saw it with Ta-Nehisi Coates sticking literal Jordan Peterson quotes in the mouth of the Red Skull in order to somehow invalidate Jordan Peterson.
Jordan Peterson book that's the least offensive book ever written. It's just like tips on life.
Yeah.
Clean up your room, pet a cat. Be nice to your parents. Like, that's what he had the Red Skull saying. When you hear that stuff, you're like, I don't know, that doesn't sound evil.
Yeah, you're sitting there going like, wait a second.
You should pet a cat, It's just a cat. He needs a little loving too. He's a stray.
Yeah, like it's this weird logic of it's this circular logic, kind of if you paint your enemy as pure evil, but then you simultaneously stick their words, like, which are eminently reasonable, into the mouths of, fictional, actually evil characters. All you've done is devalue what evil is. And
because you see someone's the devil, and then you go check in on it, and you're like, that's what you think the devil is?
Yeah. Like, man.
Not a lot of evil going on here.
Yeah,
but it's the weirdest thing because they need at least some people to believe that these guys are the devil, because that way they'll never have to respond to criticism. They'll never have to accept criticism. They'll never have to admit they failed. They'll never have to admit that they are a part of the downsizing the comic industry that's absolutely getting mollywopped by manga right now, because it's not their fault. Somehow it's Ethan Van Sciver's fault for having a YouTube channel, or Richard C. Meyer's fault for doing a dark roast where you went too far 5 years ago.
Yeah, like, I mean, it's they need to find an excuse. All it is excuse making. Don't blame
it's like
us.
The Village. Remember the plot on The Village is the monsters aren't real. They just need those monsters there to keep the kids inside the village.
Yeah, otherwise they'll leave and go back to real civilization. The whole thing is don't blame us, blame these Gen X nerds on the internet complaining about the stuff we're making. That's the reason why we're failing.
Well, what also probably chaps their ass more than anything is not only pointing out, rightfully so, with good criticism, well thought out criticism most of the time about what's wrong or ailing the industry, but also going out and making their own comics and making more money, personally than a lot of the pros at DC or Marvel are.
Yeah, I think initially
more than all their biggest detractors.
The whole fight initially started as, don't you dare criticize us. We're better than you because we're in comics. And now it's
go make your own comic books. And it's, how dare you make your own comic books?
Yeah, it is devolved into petty jealousy. That's what it looks like. And I think,
they're jealous because they're influential. They're jealous because they're making more money. They're jealous because they have no control over them. Because if you're in the comic book industry, you don't have control over yourself. Everybody else can just pull you down with them. These guys aren't tethered to that. They get to do their own thing, and and they can make a mistake here or there. And if these dipshits jump on it, it makes them more popular.
Yeah, because a bunch of Gen X nerds just managed to they laugh it off. They own their mistakes oftentimes.
I don't know if they laugh it off, but they figured out how to monetize.
Well, they do, but like even when they
of themselves in a very smart manner.
Exactly. They manage to roll with the punches. They'll turn it into a joke about them because they're able to monetize that, and they'll own it, roll with it. When you're insulting people, the only thing the only power that they have over you is you giving a shit about their opinion. And the Comicsgate guys have decided we just don't give a shit about your opinion. We don't care about your industry. We don't care about your opinion on what we're doing. So you've essentially disarmed them. Their bullets are powered by you giving a damn on their thoughts. And when you don't give a damn, part
is if you think about, like first, second, third order effects, Heather Antos, Alana Smith, and these other editors at Marvel going to get a milkshake, posting the selfie up, becoming upset because Richard said "fake geek girl," which is one of the most generic
insults
put downs you can ever think. Yeah. Like the butterfly effect means Heather Antos and that milkshake and in her response to that ended up making Ethan Van Sciver a millionaire a couple times over.
Yeah, which is, I mean, it's if you really look at
Heather Antos make off of that tweet, because she also made Richard C. Meyer one of the most influential critics within comic books, and
it made him a millionaire,
substantial amount of money himself off.
Yeah,
of
it's made him over $1 million. It's made Ethan millions of dollars, and it's given Heather rotating door of higher positions at tinier and tinier companies that matter less and less in the pop culture sphere. So congratulations, you're the editor-in-chief of, I don't know, some Z-list comic book company that I've never heard of before.
No, she's at IDW still, although they just lost the Star Wars and Marvel.
Yeah, and she's probably on her. Yeah, she's probably on her way out of there now. Next, yeah, because I mean, she's gone from.
This isn't about Heather. I mean, but I'm just saying that exactly. That one moment was monetized by these two individuals, whereas the person that was felt like they were aggrieved. Someone called you fake geek girl. Get over it. It ends up essentially they giving these guys a platform to become very successful.
Well, Heather thought that doing it and her response to the criticism would, it would own the haters, and it turned them into millionaires and turned her into some chick that works at a D-list company. Good job.
But
I guess
it's made all these nut jobs in the comic industry the biggest recruiters for these channels and for Comicsgate itself. It's funny that I don't think they realize, like, you essentially created the platform that these guys have built themselves up on, and allowed them to monetize all of your stupidity.
Yeah.
And you continuously push people there by saying Comicsgate these guys are evil. And then when they go check it out, I was like, seems like they're talking about comic books most of the time, and they're wishing that there were better comic runs, and they're recommending stuff to each other.
Yeah.
Now there have definitely been some bad things done in the past, and don't get me started on War Campaign. There's been some other bad actors here and there.
Yep.
And Ethan has done some things I don't agree with, and Richard has done some things I don't agree with. But everybody does something I don't agree with.
Yeah.
I'm not going to blow something up into a mountain. It's a molehill.
I'm not like, everybody makes mistakes. They've made their own. Whether or not I agree with them, whether or not they were as severe as the comic industry makes them seem, is kind of irrelevant to the fact that, hey, everybody screws up, and somebody just figured out how to monetize screwing up a lot better than others.
But we got an entire group of people that will not let them give up their boogeyman status, even though, in my opinion, a lot of their actions do not back up near any of the rhetoric that is out there that are claiming that these guys in Comicsgate and all these things are evil. Everybody makes mistakes, but come on, let's keep it grounded in reality, because once people have a peek inside, they're like, these are just dudes like everybody else.
Yep.